while this convention wrapped here in Washington earlier Friday, embattled Postmaster General Louis DeJoy testified, and he was pressed about his handling of voting by mail and recent delays.
You will give us your word today under oath that you have not taken any action whatsoever in your capacity as Postmaster General for any political reason or at the suggestion of any administration officials.
The board's committed, the postal workers committed, the union leadership is committed to having a successful election, and the insinuation is, quite frankly, outrageous.
The Democratic-controlled House will return this weekend to vote on a bill to provide the agency with $25 billion in funding. Hallie, what's the White House's view of how the Postmaster General did, and what does it all mean for this election?
Yeah, it is something that a lot of people are watching, Bob, and keep in mind that, yes, this happened today on the Senate side, and on Monday, the House is going to get its turn to talk with the Postmaster General. One of the most interesting things about today's testimony, Bob, I think, was one thing we're watching, the conversations that the Postmaster General Louis DeJoy said he did or did not have with people like President Trump and with people like Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. So DeJoy said that he spoke with President Trump in a solely congratulatory way, never talked about Postal Service issues or things with him, did talk about it sort of generally with Secretary Mnuchin, but not in the specifics. That is something that Democrats in particular are concerned about. They want to know, did the president direct DeJoy, right, to take some of these steps that has created problems and issues with mail here in this country? The whole thing, remember, is politically critical because people like the post office. People like getting their mail. They like, of course, getting their paychecks and their prescriptions and everything else that comes in the mail, which is why it is critical, not just from the election standpoint and the balloting standpoint, but from people's sort of lives and livelihoods as well. DeJoy did commit to sort of expediting election ballots, just like what would happen in 2018. 95% of them will be processed within 1 to 3 days. That was a commitment that he made that Democrats have been looking for.
Hallie, you made a great point, Yamiche, about how he committed to expediting the mail-in ballotings. But here's a little line, Yamiche, from the New York Times today. Under intense pressure from Democrats, DeJoy refused to unwind other steps like removing hundreds of blue mailboxes and mail sorting machines. So still a lot of unanswered questions.
Well, one of the biggest questions after Postmaster General Louis DeJoy announced that he was going to be postponing more changes until after the election was, well, what damage has already been done? If you speak to some Postal Service workers, there are some good stories in the LA Times this week. They were talking about the fact that there were postal workers who said those mail sorting machines, they were critical to having mail processed in a timely way, and that now there are some processing facilities that are in chaos where you're seeing flowers and baby chicks dying in the mail and all sorts of things, chaos, workers that are overworked but not getting paid for overtime. There's all these kind of images that are out there, and the Postmaster General today was saying, well, no, that nothing that I did has hurt the post office, and that this system has really been something that's been struggling for a long time. But he is not saying, look, I'm not going to put those mailboxes back. I'm not going to put those mail sorting machines back. And that's the biggest issue, which is why we saw this week and actually saw today a group of at least 6 attorney generals, Democratic attorney generals, filing a lawsuit saying that what DeJoy is doing is actually against federal law and that he is particularly trying to slow down the mail. Now, he said, and when he was testifying in the Senate today, he said that this was outrageous and that this wasn't the way that he was doing. He wasn't acting politically. But you see states are gearing up for a legal fight here.
And Phil, provide us a little bit of a fact check here about the bigger picture, because the Postmaster General said what he said, but you've written a long story for the Washington Post with some colleagues about how the president's battles with the post office go back to early 2017.
That's right. Pretty soon after the president came into office, he was convinced by some of his friends who told him, look, the reason you lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton was in part because of widespread fraud with mail-in balloting. That, of course, is not true. There's no evidence to support that theory. The reason he lost the popular vote is because 3 million more Americans voted for Hillary Clinton than for Donald Trump. Nonetheless, it has stuck with the president, and he has been railing about the Postal Service Service in private to his advisors for the past 3.5 years, calling it a loser because of its chronic financial problems. Also seizing on it, by the way, as a way to retaliate against Jeff Bezos, the billionaire founder of Amazon, who also, full disclosure, owns the Washington Post, who has become something of a presidential foe, in part because of the president's displeasure with the news coverage in the Washington Post, calling Amazon's arrangement with the Postal Service to ship its packages a scam, even though White House officials have tried to explain to the president there is no such scam, and the Postal Service actually competes for and wants Amazon's business. Nonetheless, the Postal Service is something the president has tried to get control of and politicize, assert his personal power over these last 3.5 years.